Hi guys, so this is analyzing Atticus's closing argument. You are going to be highlighting the things that I have highlighted, and then I'm going to ask you to jot down some additional notes similar to our active reading. So you can just jot it down along the side, here in the margins, and even in this space over here where it says my notes. I'm going to start by reading the first 4 paragraphs of the closing statement by Atticus, and then I'm going to go back and we're going to talk about it, okay? So, gentlemen, he was saying, I shall be brief, but I would like to use my remaining time with you to remind you that this case is not a difficult one. It requires no minute sifting of complicated facts, but it does require you to be sure beyond all reasonable doubt as to the guilt of the defendant. To begin with, this case should never have come to trial. This case is as simple as black and white. The state has not produced one iota of medical evidence to the effect that the crime Tom Robinson is charged with ever took place. It has relied instead upon the testimony of 2 witnesses whose evidence has not only been called into serious question on cross-examination, but has been flatly contradicted by the defendant. The defendant is not guilty, but somebody in this courtroom is. I have nothing but pity in my heart for the chief witness for the state, but my pity does not extend so far as to her putting a man's life at stake, which she has done in an effort to get rid of her own guilt. I say guilt, gentlemen, because it was guilt that motivated her. She has committed no crime. She has merely broken a rigid and time-honored code of our society. A code so severe that whoever breaks it is hounded from our midst as unfit to live with. She is the victim of cruel poverty and ignorance, but I cannot pity her. She's white. She knew full well the enormity of her offense, but because her desires were stronger than the code she was breaking, she persisted in breaking it. She persisted, and her subsequent reaction is something that all of us have known at one time or another. She did something every child has done. She tried to put the evidence of her offense away from her. But in this case, she was no child hiding stolen contraband. She struck out at her victim. Of necessity, she must put him away for her. He must be removed from her presence, from this world. She must destroy evidence of her offense. All right, so we're going to be looking at those 4 paragraphs. So make sure that you highlighted the things that I highlighted. And we're going to start off with the very beginning paragraph and basically that last line. There is a technique that Atticus uses that's very simple, okay? He states that this case shouldn't have come to trial. It's as simple as black and white, right? What do you think that particular line is an example of? So I need you to make sure that you jot down over here what this is an example of. So I'm just going to go to my editing tools. And right over here, what technique is used? Okay? Then he goes on to mention how the state didn't produce any medical evidence, all right? That medical evidence is super important because we know very well that they never called for a doctor. So this statement right here is super important. That one right there. I guess I can't underline it right now. Okay. So Make sure that you have that one highlighted. One iota of medical evidence. Right there, okay? Let's see. And that it relied instead on the testimony of two witnesses whose evidence has been called into serious question. Right there, he's talking about people, thinking about what people did that was right and wrong, okay? So what technique is used here? So you have this one here also. Then he goes out to talking about how he has pity in his heart for the chief witness, but it's not pity that's strong enough to go against putting a man's life at stake. So this is actually a combination of things, okay? There are two to three techniques that you could put in this part, because he's talking about having pity, but then he's also he says these really strong words about putting a man's life at stake. Those are pretty intense words right there. And then he talks about, what's the right thing to do. And he says he's not going to extend his pity so that a man's life is at stake. And he talks about her guilt, all right? So again, it's talking about like the right thing to do versus the wrong thing to do. She broke a time-honored code of our society. Again, that goes back to reminding us about what's the right thing to do versus the wrong thing. Okay, so what technique is used here? But then it does go into saying that she's a victim of cruel poverty and ignorance. So again, very strong words, okay? What do we call that when he uses strong words? Jot that down here. And then he focuses on her strong desires, all right? Strong desires to break that code, that she persisted and she persisted. What is he doing when he keeps saying she persisted? All right? What is that an example of? And then he moves on to talk about how this is very much like a child, okay? And he compares this whole guilt that she has to something that a child does when a child does something that's wrong and they try to hide whatever it is that is wrong. What do we call that when it's some kind of a comparison, all right? What is this comparison with a child called? What technique? Okay. Then in here, he says about the evidence that she has to destroy, and she brings in Tom Robinson. He says Tom Robinson over and over again, and he mentions that he's a human being and how she tempted this Negro. Ooh, I went ahead. I'm sorry. You guys actually don't have to do that part, but you're more than welcome to get up to that part if you want. So just make sure that you have things jotted down. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots that you can put some kind of technique down in those first 4 paragraphs. All right. Again, you have the sheet of all the techniques. If you can't find it, it is on Canvas. It is page 596 on Canvas. If you go all the way down to modules where it says pages 595 through 599, just open that up and take it to 596, and that sheet will open up for you. Also, if you lose this Atticus packet, you can get it from Canvas modules. It's the last file that's on there, all right? But please make sure that you make highlights and appropriate comments along the side. If you want to jot down additional notes, you're more than welcome to. All right, thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.